Hey, what's up? I'm Joel Madden, and this is Artist Friendly. Today, I'll be talking to Grammy Award-nominated, multi-platinum R&B singer, songwriter, actor, and entrepreneur, Mario. And he's from Maryland, just like me. Let's go.
Times I don't wanna have bad.
How long have you lived in LA?
On and off for about 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been here for 20.
20?
Yeah.
Like from where?
From Maryland.
Right, from Maryland. Right.
Yeah.
Fire, bro.
That's
Lit.
one of the reasons I was
Lit.
obviously been a fan of yours for a long time, because coming from Maryland, it's a big deal when someone
It is.
makes it to the national and the global level. And I mean, globally, to do something at the highest level, there isn't a ton of people around you doing that in Maryland. So
Thanks.
it's a big deal when someone does.
But it's a lot of talent in Maryland.
Lot of
so
talent.
much. You know, there's a lot. I actually did a research one day. I can't remember everybody, but there's a lot of people from my era that has had success. But you don't really, when you're there, you don't really associate that with coming from Maryland. You know
No,
what I'm
not
saying?
at
You
all.
don't feel that. It's almost like we should open up like a little museum for successful people who came out of Maryland.
Honestly,
It's like,
but think about it. They do have a museum for like
Really?
Babe Ruth.
oh, right.
If you had a
right.
museum for people that from like all the different people that have come from Maryland and all the different like categories and walks
for
of
sure.
life, like there's a lot of talent, but it's weird because it's when you're there, it's everywhere feels like a small place.
Yeah, no, everywhere it does. And there's a lot of little small sectors and towns and
Yeah,
different things. I mean, growing up in Baltimore, I moved around a lot just in Baltimore.
all
though.
around the city.
So I never went to other places outside of Baltimore.
Right.
Like it wasn't until I got older and started like doing shows, and I'm like, oh shit, snap, we got cool stuff in Maryland. Like there's a lot of cool little areas and stuff. So, you know, being in music gave me such a broader understanding of even where I come from.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise I wouldn't have probably had it. I grew up in like a big family, but my family didn't go outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in Edmondson Village, then we moved to Pikesville, then we moved to I lived back in East Baltimore before I left, and I got adopted at 13. So
yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of moving around though.
You got adopted at 13.
Yeah. Yep.
What's that like to get adopted at 13?
Honestly speaking, by the time I got adopted, I was pretty like numb to life.
Right.
Because I have been through so much, like growing up in the city, and I saw so much. I got a lot of love from my grandmother, and like, you know, our family structure, just like everybody had to love each other. It was 18 of us under one
Wow.
roof, like cousins, older cousins, aunts,
Yeah.
uncles. It was kind of like that scene from Menace to Society when the party was happening. Like,
Yeah.
it was that energy, but it felt normal. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So by the time my grandmother passed away and things that happened, I was like numb to everything. So I didn't really feel much sadness or I didn't know what I was feeling. I was
Right.
13 years old and I was just experiencing life day by day. It wasn't until I gotten older and I looked back on life and realized like the controlled chaos
Yep.
within myself,
Yeah.
because I never reacted to what was going on around me. I just was observing all of it,
Yeah.
you know, and just trying to figure out, like, I always felt a bit before my time. And I think that's one of the reasons why coming into the music industry, I was kind of like already super mature and like I wasn't really like a kid in the candy store. I was just kind of like, okay, what's next? Like,
Right.
you know, what crazy journey is this next? You know what I'm saying? I think the hardest part about the adopted part was just the fact that I was completely away from my family and it was a completely new type of control structure. It was, you know, I never had a father figure. So it was like
Right.
someone trying to like be my dad. It was like
Suddenly.
what is this? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So yeah, that was the hardest part.
That to me though is like, it's crazy when I think about artists that it's weird because like I have followed your career. It's over 20 years I've been
Yeah.
following your career, which is crazy to even say.
It is.
And we're in this like weird business where like we straight up we see them go down to it. We see people don't survive.
Yeah, it's tough because people have to see it.
Yeah.
When you're not in the public eye or when this isn't your path, like you can go through your dark moments and your shadow work and everything and not have it be exploited
Yep.
in a way, you know?
Yep.
And that's the hard part about it. And so I think that I think I did good with managing the parts of myself that I didn't want the world to see, and dealing with any moments of like complete chaos in my life without it being exploited.
Right.
You know, it was one thing that happened, but like other than that, it was like, you know,
Well, there's always going to be one thing,
like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
or two, or three.
And I learned that early on, you know what I'm saying? I learned that, especially when the digital crusades happened, bro. Like, I'm like, okay, this is changing the landscape of how we live, you know.
The digital crusades.
That's what I call it.
That is,
Bro, that's
I've
what I call
never
it.
heard anyone say that, and I'm like, you know what? You just nailed it.
Bro, that's what I call it.
That's crazy. That is a really great way of putting it. And you see people fall victim to it, and it's a real thing.
We all have in our own way.
Yeah.
And it's like the prime example of like, okay, you can think one way and you may have the answers to like solving problems of a million people.
Right.
You could give them, but if 999, you know, thousand people follow this one way and you have the answers, it's like, it's going to affect the whole movie.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's the control of the internet, you know what I'm saying?
And it's the reality that we live in.
It's the reality we live in. So, you know, I think now it's getting to a point though now where it's like, okay, I'm starting to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's like,
yeah,
it's forcing us to have to wake up to like, oh, how the world is being. When I say the world, I don't mean Earth itself, like right. People, our collective consciousness, how every society is performing in life every day. And it's like, you have to kind of choose who you want to be and what information you want to take in. What do you want to watch? You know, what do you want to be your guide? What do you want to be your vices visually and subconsciously? Like, it's getting to that point where I'm like, okay, this world is like very addictive.
Yep.
And it doesn't even have to be real. And so it's like, you got to kind of make sure you know what you're doing there.
Yeah. I was just talking about this.
It's crazy.
I was just talking about this today, that like what I kind of realized this week, I don't even know what made me think about it. Oh, I do a TV show called Ink Masters. It's a fun TV show, very light. It's a tattoo show.
Fire.
So
I got like 20 tats.
Yeah. You have tattoos. Yeah. It's easy. It's not heavy. And I was promoting it, and I went on a show, and I was I was comfortable. Yeah. So I was casually just talking about like my wife, and you know, it was nice. It was like, they're like, how have you guys been together so long? And I'm like, oh, you know, lots of therapy. And it was kind of joke, but also we have gone to therapy, but I also go to therapy myself. So like, Facts. I don't know, it's not that foreign to people now. Like it feels pretty casual to say, right? And then I saw a thing today. I don't promote a lot. Yeah. So you know, when you go out on promotional tours and you're doing TV shows and stuff, it's a little stressful and you're a little uncomfortable and you're just trying to find your way through it, and you know, for sure, it just feels weird.
Like how to like say in these small bites, in these small times, everything that this means to you, everything that like me.
And then avoid certain things that you know will be the headline. So then the headline is like, no, Joel and Nicole go to therapy to whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, bro, that was like 1 second out of the whole interview.
Yeah, and also I kind of embarrassed. I felt embarrassed. Yeah, because like also I don't want to embarrass my wife. Yeah. It's really not anyone's business anyways in some regards. But then in another way, it's like, is that so bad anyways? Like, but I had a moment where I was like, fuck, man, I feel embarrassed. And I told my wife that. I was like, I feel fucking stupid, man. Why did I even go on that and say that? Yeah. And because I don't even fucking care. I don't even need to go on that.
That's like when you just like a cool person and you go into interviews, you just like, people always say, like, what can't we talk about? I'm like, I don't know.
Talk about whatever.
That's where that matters. It's like, but then you don't also, it's like, you know, when you make music that has lived with people for, like, you don't want things to feel like,
you don't want to push people away.
It's like you literally could be changing somebody's life.
And the person that the host of the show isn't even trying to get that out of you. Like, they're cool. It's just the media aspect of it. But I told her that, and she was like, I don't know. It just feels like you were being yourself. Don't think about it. And then I was thinking about that, and we were talking here, and I came to the conclusion that, like, as embarrassing as those moments can be sometimes when we are vulnerable, or even if we're not being vulnerable and we're just being casual and being honest, the most sustainable thing we can be is ourselves.
Very true, bro.
If we create a character that we have to live up to, it's unsustainable.
It's true. And I also think, like, as artists, sometimes I know that I speak for myself, but like sometimes I overthink what people may think about something like that.
Yeah.
Yo, people don't even care.
Yeah.
Most of the time, no one cares.
That's right.
They really don't. And you're like, oh.
They're literally reading it while they're like
care.
going to the bathroom.
They don't care. You know what I'm saying? And so
it's true.
no one cares.
It's true. We get in our head though.
For sure.
Because we're thinkers.
Our job is to actualize emotion. Our job is to actualize stories. Our job is to, make people believe what we feel is real through the music and know that it's real and affect them. So, for sure, man.
I feel like you have, over the last 20 some years, first of all, I think, R&B music and what you represent in R&B music and what you experienced at a young age, and then essentially growing up in this.
Yeah.
And you're having, a lot of success with your new music, which is a testament to talent.
Thanks.
And experience. And
definitely experience for sure.
And also, though, from the outside, I look at it and I go, you must have found some calm in there to not be. I'm trying to explain it without insulting. I'm not trying. I don't want to insult people, other artists.
But it's the truth. Like, I think that
it feels like there's some calm or zen in there, because I see people that have struggled and they're jumping out at all these different places, and some of it you're like, oh, they're really creative, and some of it you're like, yo, don't do that. And then you see people who grow up in this thing and there's some gracefulness to it. And like, I feel like you have, because it can be a really ungraceful business, and we all see those stories, but I just feel like when I see you, I go, that guy must have some zen in his life, some calm in his life, something that matters more than this music more than this.
You really just did it. What you just said is it. And not to take away from the gratefulness I have and the gratitude I have for people buying my music, streaming, listening over the years, coming to shows. Like, I just came off a tour, but in anything that we do, and this is for anybody listening, like, your meaning of life and for life cannot be your occupation, and it can't be something that can be taken away from you.
I agree.
You have to build a ship around you energetically that is yours.
Yep.
And that space and that place is sacred to you, and it has to be, in order for you to be protected, in order to protect yourself, and that's something that I think, after moving from Baltimore for the second time, when I moved back at 19 years old, moving back to Baltimore at 19 is different from 13.
Right.
The reality of what I was able to remember and see that I was living, and what people were living in the city, and what was going on in my family, just my life, and where I really came from, as opposed to what the world knew about me, was two completely different worlds. And so I stayed in Baltimore for like 5 years as an artist, though, as a working artist. And it matured me a lot, spiritually, mentally, psychologically. And I'm grateful for the struggles and the distorted chaos moments that I was experiencing personally, that drove me to want to move and to understand life from every aspect spiritually. And that's what I think changed for me when I moved back. When I moved to LA, I was like, okay, this city's interesting. It has all of the elements of, like, whatever life you want to live, you can live it.
You can be anyone you want.
You know what I'm saying? You can be anything you want here, right? And you're also,
there's good and bad to that.
Right? And so, but because I seen so much failure in life, failure as in personal failure, not, I tried this idea or this job and it didn't work. Like, failure on a soul level.
Right.
When I came here, it was like nothing could break me. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, okay, all I need now was just space for me to like grow spiritually. And I started studying. I grew up Christian. I took my Shahada. I was Muslim for 5 years. And I became a mystic at 23 and 44. And from that point,
You're 44?
24.
24.
Sorry.
How old are you now?
I'm 37.
My God,
37.
you're so fucking young.
Yeah, man. It's a blessing.
I'm 7 years older than you.
Interesting. Okay.
That's
Music
crazy.
keeps you young, bro.
Yeah, it does.
If you allow it, it'll keep you young.
If you can laugh and you can try to enjoy life, you can
For
stay
sure.
young.
But yeah, it was like that was the point where I made a decision with myself. Like, look, as a kid, even when I moved back to Baltimore, I abandoned myself for a lot of other people and a lot of other things. And I told myself that I would never do that again. And I made that. It was like a ritual. It was like literally a decision that I made. I was like, I will never abandon you. I told that to the kid inside of me.
Yeah.
I'll never abandon you again, bro. It's us for life, eternity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's an immortal relationship that I have with myself. And it's real.
It is real. And also, like, we talk about, people talk about the inner child and in a therapeutic way, but there is actually, like, I believe it because I had to do that with myself too. Like coming up in a tough childhood, poverty, some trauma, all that stuff. Very complicated relationship with my dad, who left when I was young. But I always had my twin brother, so I was really lucky because we were like so tight. We raised each other.
Wow.
We depended on each other. The relationship with yourself it's one that's weird because it's really hard to talk about, especially in music. Because most of the time in music, if you've made music, especially successful music, nobody really wants to hear about your pain. But that's all that music comes from pain.
It does. All of it comes. Even if you're singing about, it don't matter if it's coming out of you. Whatever's coming out of you, it may sound beautiful, but it could still be coming from pain.
Yep.
I've sang love songs my whole life. Like, I've made a couple of songs that were that I released independently. They weren't as successful as the other songs, but they mean just as much to me personally.
Yeah.
And so I agree, bro. Like, energy doesn't die, and I feel like, it's if the same power that can come from darkness is coming from light too. It's like, it's weird. It's an interesting thing, but it's like some of the hardest moments of my life, I've done the best work.
Yeah.
When I'm on stage or if I go through something, like, I work really good under pressure. It's my life. It's been my life. It's like, it's happening now, and I hope you're ready for it. Like, there's something beautiful about that pressure. And I think as artists, we adapt to working under that type of pressure. But we just have to also use that for our own well-being as well.
As much healing as we give to other people through the music, we gotta take care of ourselves. And coming from a tough place or any kind of a challenge growing up, right? Because I also say that, like, I had a tough childhood, but I'm sure there's someone listening that had a tougher childhood than me.
For sure.
And I got my brother. I was lucky, right? But I do know that we always said that. We were like, man, what we made it out of, this is nothing.
Right.
Okay, so I don't have a hit record.
Right.
Or the tour didn't sell out.
Right.
Or drop me. Or no one cares about me. And I remember having moments in my career that were down times, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, at the end of a 7-year, 8-year run, 9-year run, whatever, and then suddenly it's just like, we're not the hot shit anymore, like in this moment. And there's some new thing. And coming into music with a low self-esteem and kind of like getting my self-esteem from the success of my music it wasn't that it was a mistake, but it was a learning that, like, oh, it's good the music did well, but also you can't have your self-esteem wrapped up in it. You got to find your own self-esteem. And I remember in one of those times, which actually was the beginning of the most powerful, probably decade of my life, which has been the last 10 to 12 years, was actually my wife saying like having a real like moment where I was depressed and angry a little bit, you know? And she was like, what are you talking about? You come from nothing. Getting from there to here was the hard part.
Right.
Getting from here to there is the easy part. Life is not hard like it was growing up. And she's like, I just think you need to remember who you are.
Sometimes we need that
and where
reminder.
you're from.
Sometimes we need that reminder, bro. I feel you, and thank you for sharing that story, because I remember multiple times when I don't feel like I ever felt like, oh, I want to give up on music, or like I'm not successful as I should be, or I had these moments, because like I said, during that time when I made that decision, I actually wasn't planning on. There was somewhere in me that said that if I never started making music again, I'm totally okay with that. But it was also because of where I was spiritually at the moment. But I definitely hit rock bottom at a point when I had went through like some things with my mom. This was way before she passed. When I was still living home. Like that was my darkest moments for sure, because I thought I was doing everything right. Like I thought me moving back home and like, you know, getting her a place and like giving her everything she wanted was going to change her decisions and in turn make my life better. Because I felt like, okay, this is all I'm missing. But my ego was so, I guess my heart's ego, I don't know how to describe it, but because I felt like I failed that, it took me to a place I had never been before. Because I'm like, okay, if I can't turn to you, what else is there? You know what I'm saying? Because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. She recognized my talent. My grandmother did. So it was like, if I can't take you on this journey with me, then what is it? What am I doing? Who do I take with me? You know? So I had to kind of get myself out of that, which is why I moved out of Baltimore. So, you know, I think those rock bottom points for us as creatives are really important. And it kind of helps us to redefine what our purpose is in this shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? And the people around us and who is around us during that time. Like, you know what I'm saying? You had your wife. That's a beautiful thing, you know? So yeah, I think those moments are.
And I think it's just in life, period. Everybody that is doing anything, the wrong people will point to things that make you feel like a failure. Like,
or vices.
They'll encourage vices, or they'll say like, why didn't you get nominated?
Oh, right.
You know, or whatever.
Right.
And the right people will remind you who you are.
Yeah. Man.
And at your best self. But I'm just happy you're here because
yeah, for sure, man. That's a blessing.
I've always wanted to talk to you. We met a couple of times back in the day.
Yeah.
In passing, like maybe it was like a radio show or something.
Radio shows, award shows,
like that.
whatever.
Yeah. And you were always really nice. And I was always like from Maryland. Now I'm from the more like PG and Charles County side, so that's more like DC side.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot more time in Baltimore. Love Baltimore. It's crazy.
Baltimore is definitely crazy.
It's wild.
It's a wild city.
One of a kind. Small.
It's very small.
And friendly, but wild.
Yes. Friendly, but wild. I mean, I guess it just depends on who you know and what you're doing out there. But definitely, like, you know, just like any other place, man. Some good restaurants, great food, great seafood,
great people, great food,
great vibes. But you know, I think that the history of the city and at one point the city being one of the capitals of like heroin and like just it's such a small city. It's like a lot of like, you know, competition in the streets and like it's a lot going on, you know. And you know, I grew up in that era where heroin and crack and all of that was
big.
You know what I'm saying? You walk outside, you're gonna see needles on the ground. Like
it was like the early 2000s, the late 90s and early 2000s. Heroin was big.
Everybody was trying, you know, everybody was coming through there. It was crazy.
I remember we were talking about it, and in the late 90s, the early days of our band, we started in 96. We would be playing parties around the Baltimore area, like little shows, and people were on heroin. We didn't know it at the time.
Wow.
And then you kind of start putting it together, and you're like, oh, I remember me and Ben years later.
Wow.
I never did heroin, right? I never fucked with drugs, but we put it together that they were all we were playing like these parties sometimes, and there would be like, it was a total heroin vibe. We just didn't know they were on heroin.
Nobody's
it
ever
was
said
big
that
in the
before.
late
That's
90s.
crazy. Yeah, no, it was definitely, you know, I saw so much of it that it became the norm. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely impacted the family. But music was something I feel like my mother, she was like, when she found out I loved music, she was like, I gotta keep this around him.
Yeah.
So she always had me on talent shows and singing. Every time she could tell somebody or show somebody I had talent, she was making me sing at a birthday party. I grew up singing in church. It was all that kind of like gave me a world. You know, when you always live in another world when you hear music. Like when you're musicians, it's a whole other world.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what really like saved me from going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And obviously leaving the city. Yeah.
I feel that way too.
For sure.
I think music saved me.
I think you got to move away from the nest, bro. It's important because people around you sometimes can't really see the greater you until you're not around.
Yep.
It's just like a thing, right? And so unless you like opening up a restaurant or like doing, like when it comes to music, which is such a mystical thing that doesn't exist until you create it, you have to leave sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's LA?
How is LA right now?
Yeah, I mean,
LA is good, bro. Like you know,
I've been here 20 years. I love it. I don't know if I've ever seen it
I've never
like
seen
it is
a
now.
place like LA before, bro. I've
Yeah.
never been to a place. I would say that, okay, LA, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's so many different dimensions to this place
Yeah.
that if you are a person who enjoys dimension jumping,
Yeah.
then you would love it here.
Yeah.
I like dimension jumping. I grew up dimension jumping. So for me, I loved it when I moved here. I'm like, oh, okay, this is the place where the outcasts from their cities come and can be as weird as they want and be whoever they want, you know, and try that.
Yep.
And fail at that. And
Yeah.
win at other things. And, you know, it's just a place. I mean, there's so many ways we could describe it, but I love LA.
Yeah.
Obviously, I feel like a lot of it, as far as living wise, it's always been an expensive place, but now it's like the energy doesn't match what it costs sometimes.
A
Like,
little
you know what I'm
crazy
saying?
right
It's
now.
crazy. And it's like you would think that, okay, for a place that so many people have given energy to, that the energy would be returned in a better fashion. But
I think we're in like a process of like, I always think things have to die and be like reborn. And I think that we're in the process of like a little bit of that here in the city. Cause I remember
think that I think is everywhere, but I feel what you're saying.
Yeah.
Bro, I feel what you're saying.
And I think people like have an innate weird, like I feel like as a humans as a culture, we destroy things.
Yeah.
Like we just want to see them burn. And then we all stand around the next day, like hungover, like that was crazy. Should we go get lunch and like
facts.
sit quietly
That's
until
facts.
we get a couple days away from this like hangover and we can go back to normal? Like I really feel like humans, like we have these
That lower
boiling
part
point
of
moments.
ourselves, yeah, for sure, that like doesn't understand balance.
Yeah.
Or that likes to be in balance sometimes, because sometimes it feels good when you're not in control, or you know, in the influence of the positive influence. Sometimes it feels good, but I think it's the balance be off sometimes, bro.
It's
Causes
been
that
weird.
shit. Yeah,
I've been here for 20 years. I'm raising my kids here. I
Yeah.
got teenagers. It's weird to think that like this is all they know. They don't even really think about it.
yeah,
And so there's that perspective where I'm like, well, you're now really bothered. But then I also don't realize they're like, I feel like my kids don't realize how much danger's around.
yeah.
They're like-
And I always wonder, like, I don't have kids, right? But how much of your child do you really know? Like, right? Like, how much of and I mean this in a respectful way, but like just anyone who has kids, like how much of your child do you really know? How much do they actually tell you of how they think about things? And what
That's
are
a
they
good question.
experiencing mentally and emotionally every day, every second of the day? Who are their friends? And what are they like, you know what I'm saying? It's
Like, what are they really into? Are they going to really tell you? It's
Because
like, essentially you're like, parents are like, it sounds whatever, but like parents kind of represent God to their kids until their kids get old enough and separate enough to go, oh, they're not God. They're just like me. They grew up and they had kids. right? But like in the early formation of their like psyche, they're like, oh, this is kind of, you're the being that like knows all.
You know everything.
And
like you can't,
yeah. I've been thinking about that too, because they're teenagers, and I'm like, I don't want to know everything actually.
Wow.
Wow,
that's deep. Okay. I feel you on that though.
I think they should have a place where they should have private lives.
Would you interview one of your kids on this show?
I wouldn't, because I'll tell you why. One thing I think about this show, and one of the reasons that I like doing it, is that they'll be able to listen one day. Maybe one day they'll go, I want to know my dad better. And they'll be able to listen to hundreds of hours of me talking to people.
Yeah.
And even if it's when I'm really old or when I'm gone.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's nice for a record, right? Because I'm not good at writing. So writing them a long letter doesn't feel like something I would ever do. But this is kind of like these conversations. Whenever I talk about my kids, it's a love letter, because I do love them, but I also don't want to control them, and I don't want them to feel like they have to live up to my idea.
Absolutely, the freedom part is very important. I do think that for sure.
But I want them to feel like I'm here. Like if they need something, I'm your guy. If you want to figure it out, I'm your guy. Like we'll figure it out.
So you leave that space for them. Like it's an open space for them still, always.
But I always worry about them.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
Like watching your heart walk around.
Your heart had legs.
Yeah, you're like,
not for sure.
You know,
no, I definitely love LA. I've left plenty of times, and I always find myself coming back. Yeah. I feel like there's a certain level of just creativity and vastness that's here. Like I said before, that inspires me as an artist. Like I feel like certain places are like one-dimensional when it comes to the type of music that's going to be created in that space. I feel like here's a little bit of everything, and it always keeps me. Like I come from a city, like I come from a lot of grit,
a lot of action,
and so here I get grit, I get beauty, I get soulfulness, I get everything. You know what I'm saying?
There's a neighborhood for everything here.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing I feel like I wish happened more here, which I do get in certain circles that I walk in, is like more teamwork amongst like the different types of people and artists that are in the city.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the different types of music that everybody makes, like something that's a little more, you know, of a collaboration.
Yeah. On
something. I don't know what that is, but that's what I wish that.
It's like pockets here.
Yeah.
Of little groups of people.
Yeah.
I thought it was really hard the first 5 years, and then once I met my wife and kind of started settling down in that way, it got a lot different. It got a lot easier.
You met her here in LA?
I met her here. She's from here.
Oh wow.
Well, actually, cool. She's actually from Oakland. She was here off and on, but she got adopted when she was 9, and she was here full time from there.
Yeah.
But like LA has really been home.
Fire.
Where she like got, you know, her parents really, her mom and dad, and her family life bloomed here, and she I think
that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful to find love in a space where you're also still finding yourself and creating your destiny. You know?
I think it's interesting. I always think about like that. That's why I asked, what's it like to be adopted at 13? Because I asked her the same question. Like, what's it like to be adopted at 9? Because you hear about people getting adopted when they're babies.
Yeah.
So they don't have any other memory of
their family.
And it's complicated. But like what I see with her is like, because I talked about moving from LA a few times, because this is not my childhood memories of like home will always be Maryland. So when I go home to Maryland, it's the only nostalgia I feel is when I'm home in Maryland.
Wow, that's crazy.
Right? So when you drive down a road and you're like, I remember this from when I was a kid, or I remember this smell, or this, your first formative moments of happiness, of sadness, of heartbreak, of joy, all happened in this area. And so you have these familial feelings. And when you're here, I don't have any. I don't have any familial feelings.
Interesting.
And
even ones that you've created from living here?
Yeah, like I have some good memories.
Right.
But like those formative years, I was in Maryland till I was 21.
Right, okay.
So it's just like a feeling you have. So when we go home, probably like 2 or 3 times a year, I take my kids with me, and I have a really good, when I go home, I have a really nice time. I like that. I'll talk to anyone there.
I'm actually going back home for the holidays with family members from both sides of my great grandmother's sister.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of our family is in Philly.
Right.
So we're actually going to Philly, and we'll all be together for the first time in like, can't even count the years, bro. So
that's cool.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and by the way, when I come back,
yeah,
I always have like a lot of stuff to process.
No, for sure.
You know,
for me, I gotta mentally prepare for it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because we also had a pretty complicated family life. I always have to kind of go back with a therapeutic mindset,
right?
Where I go, okay, I know that I'm gonna have a really good time in some ways, and I know in some ways I'm gonna have experiences that trigger me,
for sure,
make me feel like jumpy, make me feel anxious. And as long as I know that, I can come back here and kind of unpack it all and process it and go like, and I feel like it makes me better for it. But I have a really good time. When I go home, I don't feel like I have, even though LA is a great town, when I'm home, I'll talk to anyone and just have like a little like small town conversation.
Absolutely.
I don't know. There's something about moments.
That. Yeah. It's important. It brings you, I want to say humbles you because you obviously are a humble person. But like
sometimes
it just reminds you of how vast life is and just like that it's limitless, bro. Like to me, that's what I feel when I go home and I talk to like an old neighbor or somebody who knew my grandmother or somebody who knew my mom. Like I'm like, wow. Like, and then it also reminds you like the effect that they've had on like certain family members that had on people. And those are the things that I love most about it, I think. And just like going back to like the different
and like
that I've lived.
You can have these small interactions that are just that. We're never going to be best friends, but they're wishing you well, you're wishing them well, and you're passing people on the road, and it's not always a step towards your goal.
All right.
Step, you know, in like LA, sometimes
sure.
I feel like we live in an environment where everyone's like taking another step to their goal instead of like meeting a stranger and
just
going
having
like,
just
the weather's nice. I hope you're doing well. And even though
I think it's a character thing though, because sometimes I have those moments. Like I know the environments where it's like, okay, this is work. This is like, okay, this person that I'm meeting could possibly be a possible partner in some type of something. And then there's people that's just like random conversation. Bro, I'm weird. Like I'll have a conversation with a homeless person, like, and just talk about whatever it is that they're in, dimension they're in. Cause like, I don't know. I feel like
maybe they are in another dimension.
You feel me? And like, I
don't
know. I talk to random people all the time and I love it.
Yeah.
Like I love every time, every moment of that type of stuff, bro. It's refreshing to talk to somebody about something and know that there's no ulterior motives. It's just another person living their journey, whatever that journey may be.
I feel like coming up in music, I've made some really great friendships with other artists. I feel like I have kindred spirits with a bunch of artists. You have a lot of friends who are also just...
I don't know what it's like in your genre of music, right?
Yeah.
I hate the term urban music.
Right.
In R&B and in my field of music and in urban music.
Right.
I don't feel that camaraderie unless it's like beneficial.
Right.
I don't think that, you know, and I see a lot of people that say they're friends or but it's because maybe, then I think there's some people that obviously there's real relationships, but
I wondered that.
Most of the time, what I see is like, you know, it's because it's beneficial. You know what I mean?
Right. It's a little transactional. Transactional.
Yeah, for sure. Me personally, a lot of it I would say is my fault because I've always been like to myself and like kind of like standoffish with people. It takes a lot for me to like trust people and to be vulnerable. I've just started being that way over the past few years, being more vulnerable because I don't want people to get me fucked up. Right. So like I started being more like, nah, like you have to be yourself fully because otherwise people are gonna make assumptions.
Right.
Not that it matters, but it does at the same time, right? So I started just being a little bit more social and like, you know, letting people in my world more. But I wouldn't say I have a lot of real friends. I have a lot of associates.
Right.
I think it takes a lot for someone to be my real friend.
Right.
And the times that I have tried, I think that there's just different there's just different lifestyles and different ways of life. And I have a very short social media, I would say. And I also like, to take time away from things and people often.
Right.
Like when I go on tour, when I get home, I don't want to talk to people for like a week.
Yeah, you need that solitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I think a lot, it's 50-50. 50% me being being a loner and being
That's fair.
kind of an introvert.
That's a very honest,
And then
fair.
50% of it being just how the industry is.
The environment.
Yeah.
That's super fair, by the way. And
Yeah.
I don't know that many people would like take ownership over we were talking about this and I said, if I have the same problem with more than one or two people, then I have to look at myself
For
and
sure.
go, what is it about me that's causing this? But it's 50-50, right? Because the environment is real.
I'm gonna be honest with you too. A lot of the music in my genre, whether it be R&B or hip hop, is like built off of ego.
You're right.
That's just the way
There is like a persona.
You know what I'm saying?
There is a persona that you have to survive. It feels like it's hard.
Yeah.
I watch it sometimes and I go,
everybody don't know how to turn it off.
Right.
So it's like, who am I? Am I talking to this you or am I talking to your?
you got to keep your guard up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
But doesn't that like
I don't do it as I don't really keep my guard up anymore. You
Right.
know, I try to go in like this so that I know who's like this.
yeah.
When you go in like this, you know who's like this.
Yeah.
You know? And then I respect whatever it is. I don't force it.
It makes sense though because but also the idea that you're a loner when I think about just hearing what you've told me about your life and knowing where you're from because I have been there, right? And I don't even go there that much, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's what
But you remember.
but I know
But
I know and I know what I know, right?
Exactly.
So it makes
Say less.
sense to me when I put it together.
And it never left me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And because it can't.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's hardwired into you.
Yeah.
That's the nature of us as a species is we're these extremely resilient survival species.
Absolutely.
So we adapt to our environment to survive. And then that stuff gets hardwired into us. And then we're thrown into this other environment that's like Disneyland.
Right.
Right.
But it's important. Like we needed that. You feel me? Like I feel like growing up in Baltimore gave me the resilient spirit that you need in a business like this.
It
I don't
becomes
care
your
how
strength.
successful or not successful your career is. It is a jungle.
It will
It is a
eat
jungle.
you alive.
Give
It
me
will-
so
it
you
will
have
eat
to
you
really
alive.
be built for it so that you can both have your career, which you should separate from who you are to a certain degree in terms of what makes you happy, what you really love outside of just, music and going on tour and all these things. Like who are you really outside of that, right? You got to separate it. But in order for you to enjoy life outside of that, you can't take on the gravity of it fully into your life. Like if something bad happens in it, you got to know how to separate it. It's really important.
The thing that would have been the biggest challenge also becomes your biggest strength when at this stage in your life you can live where you want.
Facts.
Right, by the strength of your hard work,
Absolutely.
and the life you made for yourself. You can live where you want. You can live how you want. You can interact with who you want. All of that is a choice now.
Absolutely.
It wasn't a choice then, right?
true.
You could perceive that as like a weakness, right, or a challenge. And I said this. Me and my brother talk about this all the time. All the things that we were the most embarrassed of, or the most challenging parts of our life, all became our strengths. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And
It's just like a mindset thing.
so that's interesting. Like to me, when I see it in real life, because you're a successful guy, you're sitting here. You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to go. You don't have to be here. You're at a stage in your life and your career, right? You have a legacy.
I think like now it's like about this conversation and you having the journey that you've had. Like, and I've watched, some of the ones you've done in the past, podcasts you've done in the past, interviews, and I'm like, okay, this is one I like this. I like this energy.
That's cool.
That's like what I think about. I don't do a lot of interviews.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
I just have to it just have to feel right. It's gonna live forever.
You did you talked to Joe Budden, and I actually want to have him on this show
Yeah.
because I
A
think
fellow Virgo.
I think he's interesting. He is a Virgo.
Yeah.
My wife's
Yeah.
a Virgo. And
man.
Virgos
That's fire.
are interesting characters.
That's true.
And I'm obsessed with like understanding people that achieve things, right? We could argue about brand, we could argue about perception. In entertainment, there's all different opinions, right? You could talk to someone about one person about my music and they'd be like, they're the greatest. You could talk to another person, they'd be like, well,
Yeah, right.
So I'm at an age now though where I understand that it's not personal for me.
not
I'm
personal,
just kind of like, I think it's good for the I think the whole conversation's good, right?
And then I also think, I'm going to cut you off, it's also about how people experience you, man. It's like, for someone to be like, the music's cool, and then maybe they come to a show and they're like, oh shit, or like whatever, like come watch you create in the studio. Like people can only dislike or like something that they've experienced. Like, and then some people go off opinion or they follow the crowd, but like you got to give people a real chance. But yeah, I was just
because even like a music video or a song doesn't really capture the being that's projecting all this stuff out there.
It's true.
And that's one of the reasons why I like to do this, because I love meeting artists, because I feel like we all have similar qualities to us, and we've strangely all been through very similar experiences, a lot of us.
Yes, man. It's like two boxers can respect each other.
Yeah.
Whether they win or they fight, it's like you see them hug it out at the end. It's like, bro, we both went through war to get here.
We went through
and
war.
Just like, you know, and I feel like there is a beautiful war happening as an artist who has had a certain level of success. When you go through these fucking labyrinths of success and creativity, it's like when you go in the studio to create a song, like it's you and God, and you're creating your talent and whoever you're working with, like that in itself is its own dimension to conquer.
Also, the amount of times we've been rejected, or the amount of times someone's done us wrong, or the amount of times someone's come in and just tried to cash out early and take that little piece of us or whatever it was.
Facts.
And to chalk it up to the game as many times as we have. Because how many times have you had to say, man, just chalk it up to the game because
to myself, right?
I should have seen that coming and I didn't. That's me coming from a world. Now, rock bands can be competitive. They can be standoffish. They can be jealous. They can be a lot of things, just like human beings, right? But we're not, there's a difference. What I see as a hip hop fan, as an R&B fan, it looks extremely hard to me. Not only is it one of the most dangerous jobs in the world,
the competitive nature.
Yeah, the competitive nature
that is also used as a marketing tool, especially these days.
Yeah. So it's like, let's have beef so that we can cause a scene.
I mean, sometimes there are real beefs, but it's like, how far are you gonna take it?
Yeah.
Like, you feel me? Like, it's like, it's just, I'm not in the genre of hip hop, but I am in the culture.
Yeah, but R&B
what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's still
R&B is competitive, but it's a completely different. Like, the label's not going to, or no one in my team is going to be like, yo, you heard what such and such said about you? You gotta,
right.
It's like, do you want to talk about it? Because you don't if you don't have to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that it's a different texture and a different reality still.
Seems so stressful to me.
I mean, the environments, a lot of black artists come out as stressful, bro. Like,
right.
And a lot of it is also like, you feel me? I grew up, I seen my second cousin rob my first cousin in our house that we all grew up in, like gunpoint. You feel me? Like, so it's like we grew up in environments where you get
stressful.
desensitized to certain things.
Right.
It's not even stressful. You just desensitized to it. You numb to it. Like, you feel me? And so there's a certain level of like ignorance that comes with that numbness, to as though somebody else might be like, how could you ever do that? And it was like, that's regular.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
It become, and it's sad, but this shit is true, you know? But for me personally, I literally try to elevate myself above that mindset. So the things that I allow happen around me, you know, don't mirror that type of energy.
Right.
Because I know how I can get.
Yeah.
And that's how I've stayed
You
out
know
of the
yourself.
way. Like, you feel me? And
Yeah.
so, like, a lot of times I don't put myself around certain types of energies because I still am from where I'm from.
Right.
And it could go there, and I don't like that type of energy. But some people like have to be in that energy because one, but I don't have to be, but they choose to you know, to use it. to use the energy.
Because you
know
can kind of direct it at things.
You can.
Yeah.
You can, for sure.
And then there is an idea that like, to me, there is this like kind of protective layer you think it gives you sometimes, like if you feel like, you feel almost safe in it.
Some people have to, bro. Like some people definitely, some artists, they come from a space where it's like, if they slack, it could end bad for them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I get that. I understand that. But as
No
long
lacking.
as it's real, if it's real to you and that's really where you come from, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No judgment.
I don't respect sometimes when it's created.
It's
like weird. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
weird.
But I feel like people are starting to understand that and want real connection and substance and to really be inspired again. I feel like the landscape of music is changing, even in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I feel like some artists are realizing that growth is more important than like
personal growth.
Yeah, it's important, and I love seeing that in my community. I love seeing that.
Yeah,
and I feel like I'm really proud of like, a lot of the artists that I see taking that step.
Yeah,
even though some of them may get condemned for it. You know what I'm saying? Like I saw a Jeezy interview recently. He was saying how like at the moment where he started changing his life, like he was attacked by energies that were trying to like pull him back.
Pull him back.
And it's like that do happen, bro. It's like when you are making a change in your content, it's a shift of energy because you're affecting so many people. And so that's just, that's how it goes. But I think people have to understand their power too. You know what I'm saying? I think obviously the mystique that comes with being an artist, like you want it to be about the art, but like we got to give people their flowers too, because they're the ones who put us where we are.
Yep.
In a sense. So people have a lot more power than they think when it comes to what they consume. And I think that collectively as we evolve, we'll start to, it's like if you eating McDonald's every day and eating bullshit every day, you're going to see how that reflects in your life physically, in your environment, all of that shit, right? It's the same thing with when you do personal growth. You might not listen to the same music. Your body might reject certain foods even just by changing your attitude.
Yep.
That's how powerful energy is. So I feel like we're getting to that space where people are starting to be like, even if you don't want to look at the truth, it's going to make you uncomfortable.
And coming to terms with your past in a way that isn't like we can wear the struggle as a badge of honor sometimes, right? But then we also have to come to terms with how sad it was.
Facts.
And I don't think enough people talk about it because we can't really, as artists, as successful artists, we can't go out in the world and go, yeah, but it was really sad. My childhood was really sad. Like too much. You can say, yeah, it was tough. People will accept that. But I think there's this like private, I don't even know if it's something you should talk about publicly, because I don't know that everybody could actually receive that from you. But at some point as an individual, you got to come to terms with, even like, I think sometimes I feel bad because I deeply feel other people's pain.
For sure.
And I might see somebody that might be the hardest person in the world. They might be the toughest person in the world. And there's a part of me that's inspired by that because it makes me feel safe when I listen to their music. I'm like, oh yeah, no one, you know what I mean? Like as a kid, I listened to hip hop because I was little and I didn't have anyone protecting me. So it made me feel safe. So I felt a real bond with rappers. So I always was friends coming up in music. Like our band, we always found kindred spirits with hip hop artists. And they didn't know it, but like that raised me, like the hustle mentality of like anything's possible. I'm going to work hard.
The rawness of it.
Yeah. And
especially back then, like hip hop was, it was different.
And no one can mess with me. And that was like, as a kid, I always felt like in danger all the time, like anybody could, could hurt you. But then as I got older and I became a dad and I look at my kids and I'm like, I don't want you to be tough. I want you to be smart. I want you to find a quicker route, to the end, result and a safer route. Right. So, because I think sometimes artists don't get to mourn for the loss that they suffered to become the artists they are and to share this like art with people. They had to suffer.
Facts.
And
I think that's a part of their healing process too sometimes. And that's why I was like, I try not to judge people's music when I listen to it.
Right. Yeah.
And the payoff is the therapy you get from your music. You know what I'm saying? I feel like in a lot of ways, personally. And there are a lot of people that are inspired by music, and music should be inspirational, and it should be like a template of that time of your life. Like, I should be able to listen to a project and maybe feel where you were in your life at that time. And
Yeah, you can almost be there with them.
yeah, it's like you're there. And I think that's healing for an artist. I've made songs like that. Some of them will never come out, you know. But I can't say that. A lot of my music has just been the fact that I have a good voice.
Yeah, you have a great voice.
Some of it, thank you, I appreciate you. Some of it though is like,
You were given a gift. Yeah, he was like, I'm gonna give you a really.
he was working on my vocal cords while they was taking me out the room.
But do you feel like
like
sometimes like God, life, the universe, whatever anyone out there wants to their understanding of it, do you feel like they're like, I'm gonna give you this superpower, right? Your voice is like a superpower because no one can just get up. Not many people can just get up and sing. So God gives you this superpower, and then he drops you somewhere and goes, okay, now you're gonna have all these other challenges to work through, and if you can get through the maze and find your way, you're going to get to have this incredible life. And whatever it was in you that drove you to keep trying, because there was certainly times in your life, I'm sure, that stopped you, and you keep working through.
I never stopped creating though.
Right, but you kept going forward.
Yeah, facts.
And a lot of people give up. That's the difference between you and the other. Maybe there were 9 other guys, right?
Right.
That could sing like you, but they all gave up. And then you get to the next level and there's 10 other guys, right?
Right.
And you keep going and they give up. And then you get to the next level and there's 5 guys and you keep going and they give up. And I always think about that because it's almost like becoming like an astronaut, right? There's thousands of guys in the Air Force that are trying to be an astronaut, but the tests and the challenges are so hard, the training's so hard.
I thought you were going to use the other analogy of the rocket itself, how it has to drop off certain things the higher it goes up.
No, but that's a
like
good
that,
analogy
yeah.
too. But to me, it's like the idea of the superhero that discovers he has the superpower,
Yeah.
and then the movie gets good because then he learns how to use it and then he becomes a superhero, right? That's the story of like the hero story of our lives. And I say these things because there's people listening out there and we don't even know them, and they're going through something really hard, whether it's personal or maybe it's their challenge of their building their business or their dream. And everyone's like, how did you do it? Right? And you're like, I don't know how I did it. I just kept trying.
I just kept going.
Just kept going.
There's so many ways to answer this, like to respond to that beautiful statement you just made. One of the things that stood out to me was when you said superhero. Every superhero,
The origin stories.
there's always a dark origin
Yeah.
story.
It's crazy.
A lot of them are orphans,
Yeah.
right?
That's
or
crazy.
adopted, which is crazy. But like,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to look at a superhero story. I was in the studio with Metro one time. We was just talking, and he put out the album Villains.
I love Metro.
It's my guy, man. Another Virgo brother.
Oh, he's a Virgo?
Yeah.
He's so cool.
fire, man. He's
I don't
a
know
good
him
person.
personally. I just
Yeah,
love his whole.
He's a great person, bro.
Yeah.
And we were talking about heroes and villains, right? And he says something, and I was like, yo, that's so true. So pick any superhero you want. He's fighting a villain, right? And that's just like old lady or somebody sitting in her apartment, and like she knows nothing about who's the hero or who's the villain, and he's getting his ass beat. The hero is getting his ass beat at that point in time in his life. And so he like goes through this lady's apartment and ruins everything. And the ashes from her son just falls on the ground, just ruins it, and then he's gone. He don't know this lady. He could have ruined her whole entire life trying to save the city.
Yep.
And I feel like sometimes during this journey that we have, like we have moments where something that we do may affect other people, and we're doing it because in that moment, maybe we need to worry about ourselves. Or
Collateral damage.
Or we say no to something that we usually say yes to. And being hyper aware, because that's what we have to be, is like you have to like deal with that, And sometimes for me, it feels like failure because I can't give somebody that energy, or I can't do so, or I can't even give myself that energy at that point in time. So in my own life, it's like which part of life is the villain, which part is the super? Like, who am I today? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's really interesting, and I feel like sometimes you don't have to speak about something, that your actions and your energy can speak for you. And that's what I think I've learned most about the journey itself. It's like you have to hold the truth before you're able to speak it.
Yep.
You have to be the truth before you're able to express it.
Yeah.
So if you're able to like hold that, whatever that is, whatever you're feeling, if you're able to hold that and cultivate it into a balance, bro, because you can't have one side be like this one. It's cultivate into balance. And if you're able to do that, that's what I think the real test is like you go through things and you have your struggles and you overcome that hurdle and you're like, damn, how did you look back and you're like, okay, I made it through. Take from what you learn from that, other things, you balance. You make this gumbo that's only yours. It's only got your recipe in it, bro. Yeah. It's like your special recipe.
That's great.
And you take that in your relationships and you share that with your kids and you're able to like, that's valuable.
It's the truth.
Gold.
It's the truth that you learned. It's the truth you learned. It's like I always say to my kids, and it's funny because they shake their head. But I always say, like, I'm going to try to tell you, but life will teach you. One way or the other, life's going to teach you.
Bro, it's the hardest thing to watch sometimes.
Right, because you'll see a friend or you'll see anyone and be like, look, I'm telling you from my experience, and I've experienced a bunch of shit, and there's some stuff I don't know, but I do know this. And then you'll share an experience you've had or a truth that you know.
Facts.
But some people just got to learn for themselves.
Yo, it's the craziest thing like about life, bro. It actually excites me when I see, I know this sounds great. It actually excites me when I see people go through things sometimes because I'm like, I know they're going to get through it.
And on the other side.
But I'm like, you're really blessed because you're going through this. Like I've said that to people before.
It's a gift.
And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm just like, trust me.
Yeah, you'll get through it, and on the other side, you're...
Watch.
Yeah, you're...
Because I know it, because there's been times in my life where I felt like I was dying.
Right.
Energetically.
Yep.
And I did die energetically, right? I was being reborn.
Yeah.
But in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. In the moment, it feels very lonely and painful and like all the walls are closing in on you with spikes in them. And then when you give in to trying to control it and you just allow it to happen and you take it day by day, minute by minute, slowly but surely, if you truly believe and you're able to have a little bit of hope in yourself, the light gonna come through at the last moment. You're gonna be like, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah.
And you like, fucking light is shining still. You know what I'm saying? And so
and you gain a new most of the time you gain a new muscle, you gain a new skill, you gain a new thing that you didn't have, but you had to go through that to get it. And that is like why I get more and more comfortable in new challenges with each age. The crazy thing to me about you though is you're 37, which is like you're just entering your prime. I'm 7 years ahead of you, right? So yeah. Think about this. In 7 years, you're going to have a bunch of insights you didn't have.
Facts.
37 is such a young.
No, I'm excited, bro.
Yeah,
I wake up
it's
more
young
excited
to be this grown.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like 35 is when you enter what I think 35 to 55, 65 is like prime. We're killers now.
It's crazy
like,
because
we know what we're doing now.
And it's like you can enjoy it more.
Yeah.
You can enjoy the hard shit more. You enjoy just the whole process more because you know that you have to and you know that it takes the process in order to achieve it. You know, so it's like.
And you hear a 27-year-old talking, you're like, you're going to learn.
But yeah.
10 years, you're going to learn.
I always try to tell people that I love and people around me, like, remember that you're creating literally at every moment.
Mm.
With every breath, with every thought is a creation. It's like the same things that you desire right now, you probably won't desire in 2 years or a year. You probably won't even care about it. So it's so important for you to understand why you desire something, where it's coming from, what is influencing it.
Yeah, what's the need?
What's the need for it? If you had to detach from things in your life right now, how would you feel? If you had to detach to get that which you desired truly, but you had to give up this, and that, could you do it? And why do you desire that? But could you do that? I'm curious. Like, it's like, those are the types of things that I ask myself all the time.
How do you deal with relationships? Cause I always wonder what
It's
it would,
hard, man.
I always wonder what it would be
I
like to
really-
have like all these, like there's a certain energy, like your music is
Yeah, bro.
definitely like
I'm an R&B
girls.
singer, bro.
Yeah.
You know, let's just start there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Let's just
That's my
start there.
question. Is how do you deal with having a relationship and then having to go to work, and your work is about captivating people's imaginations and inspiring certain things and creating an energy, right, to your shows and all that.
Yes.
So you're around this certain kind of energy all the time, and then you have to come home and either shut it off, or if you're with one person, like let's say you just go on a date or you're dating someone, you have to deal with their emotion around it because you're going to have to go back to work.
Yeah.
And let's say I worked in a meat packing plant, but I'm dating a vegan.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's a fire analogy.
Right. And she is not going to like that I'm in this meat packing plant all day serving up the meat for the people.
I was gonna say something, but I can't say it.
But so I wonder how you balance and how you compartmentalize going to work and doing this thing that you're very good at.
Yeah. And
certainly I've seen your shows and seen, there's an energy around you. Like girls get, it's like something happens,
Something happens.
and it's a good thing. It's a great thing. We need that in the world. And I always wonder how the great singers and different people that captured that one emotion from people that was predominantly around, romance and love and all these kinds of emotions that are all wrapped up in the heart. How do they turn that off when they go home and deal with either it's one person, or how do you do that?
The short answer is, at this point, and I'll give you both answers. The short answer is you get to a point in your life where you just respect your space and your energy to a level of like, you're just not willing to share it with just anybody.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And that doesn't mean like, you got to get married or no, it just means that you're really picky about who you allow in your space.
It's almost
because
like
you're on a mission.
Yeah, you have to find a counterpart.
You have to.
Right.
Because it's like you understand how energetically taxing your life is.
Right. Especially around that.
You know what I'm saying?
Around
Not to say that you don't like the energy,
and
but when it comes to your decisions that you make, whoever you're with, when you're at that point, will naturally feel safe.
Right.
Because of, if she's your partner and you're that thinking like that, she probably is on that level too. So she can tell like, okay, this is where he is. The long story is it takes a while to get there.
Right. You got to learn how to do
like,
that.
you know what I'm saying? You got to get to that point. And I feel like there's different quarters of my life where it was a lot harder for me than others when it came to relationships.
Yeah.
I've been bad in relationships my whole life. Contrary to the songs that I sing, sir.
I'm not surprised.
But, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with my relationship with my mother and losing my grandmother at such a young age.
Yeah.
I think if my grandmother was in my life, I would have had a different relationship patterns with women, because I never wanted to disappoint her ever in life. Not that she hasn't watched everything.
It's big to know that. It's big to know that though.
Yeah. And so I feel like in my 20s, I was dealing with a lot of, it's not an excuse, but I was dealing with a lot of trauma. I was in relationships and
You were trying.
Yeah. And I was like, but I didn't know how to deal with myself yet.
Right. You had a lot of growing to do.
A lot of growing to do. I didn't know how to deal with myself. And I hurt most of the women that I ever dated, I hurt.
Right.
Literally, like.
Well, you probably didn't know how to communicate and express and like it's hard to be honest.
I was good at communicating and I was fun and everything was fun. It was always lit, but I wasn't good at
getting close,
opening up.
Right.
When it mattered on the deeper levels.
Right.
So I would express myself.
Which you have to get to at some point. Like you go here, and then, it's time to open up. Because
I would always date girls that were deep women. And I would always date girls that were powerful in their own right.
Right.
But like when it came time to meet them on a level that would make them feel safe.
Right.
Is where I would feel.
Right.
Right.
That's powerful actually to realize, dude.
Yeah. And so, I felt myself when I wasn't happy in my relationships, I found myself finding other vices outside of my relationship, you know?
Yeah.
And
That's pretty normal though.
yeah.
You know, I think also when you're
I
not,
hate that it's normal.
I know, me too, but I had to learn because I got lucky because I had I ended up meeting a partner who had a lot of grace and who knew I needed to grow up.
Yeah.
And I think I got lucky. And that's why I kind of like believe in God, because I look at my family and I go, oh, there has to be a God. Because this was definitely not like my master plan.
Right.
And then I just kind of like stumbled my way through my 20s in the same fashion, sort of.
Yeah.
And I think that like, and then I met someone and I was like, that had the patience. And
I met a lot of incredible women in my life.
I
Like, I
bet.
could have been married at least 3-4 times by now.
I bet.
I was just too scared.
Yeah, I assume that.
So many great women, man.
Yeah.
Like, some are married, some are like have families already. I'm just like, wow, like.
Yeah, it's amazing what.
But I'm dating right now.
That's good.
I can't leave this conversation without. I'm dating right now, and I'm happy. Like,
that's great.
you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody I've known for a long time.
That's
She's
cool.
younger than me, but she's incredible and she's a great person.
Yeah, it's amazing what a really great like counterpart does for your life.
So true, bro.
Because they hold you to it. They hold you to account. They hold you accountable for.
You hold yourself accountable different when you love someone and
Yeah.
you see them and they see you. But I also think back to the point, it's like you have to get to a point where you understand how to recognize that.
Yeah.
Because you could say you recognize something, you could say, but your actions have to line up with that in order for you to really reap the benefits of your own growth.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I don't have the space to live any inorganic shit or any synthetic. Like, I want to create from a real space. I'm trying to attract the people that's supposed to be on this journey with me right now. And it starts at home with the person I'm spending my time with and I'm sharing myself with on every level. So if that's fake, then what the fuck do I expect from life?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it matters, and women are powerful. They're powerful.
They're to me
Like,
to me they're the most powerful. They give life.
Yeah, man.
And when you think about that, when I look at my kids, it gives me this like reverence for my wife and what she's done.
I can only imagine.
You know, because also like the game that we play at a high level, you know what it takes to win at a high level. It takes everything you have. And finding the balance is the hard part, right? So that you can have a real relationship with people and your family and still be out there doing.
I don't even know how to speak on this level because
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to have kids.
Oh,
It's like, I can only imagine, like, it's like,
I don't even know what it is. That's the thing, is like the whole time you're doing it, you still feel like a kid. So you're just kinda like, just trying to hold on and go through it. And so, but I feel like,
but it started with finding the right partner.
you start to value that more than like the vices and the things and the, you know, whatever it is out there. And then also there are some things I give up to have it. So I can't tour as much, right? Because it takes me away from what I actually want to be around, which is in this like this family.
But that's the blessing of it, to be able to have that choice.
And to be able to choose. It is a blessing.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm excited to watch you the next 10 years.
Thank you, man. I'm excited about this next journey too. It's and I feel like where I'm at right now is unique to what my purpose in the world is. You know, as a voice, both on stage and off stage, there's a lot of things that I have to share with the world that only I can do it in the way that I do it.
Period.
Not just for the collective, but also for my peers, also from where I come from, being a voice of somebody who made it out of a very distorted reality and kind of moving through this labyrinth by myself in a sense. You know what I'm saying? None of my family members work in the music industry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody, so it's like I've created my own path, if you will, with God, of course, and everything meets at this point. And it's super energizing to think about the possibilities as things change around us. Not happening, imagine you moving, this like magnetic ball moving through all of this chaos and then the things that attach to you. You're supposed to, and you're affected the way you're supposed to, but like knowing that now you have your protection and you know how to protect yourself and you know how to move through it and stay clean and stay like out the way. It's like there's a sense of like, to me, I think that's part of being a man.
Yeah, you're battle tested.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like knowing how to move through life, stay grounded
Yep.
in your truth. Like that to me is what being a leader, being a man is, right? And so that's for me, that's like the exciting part of where I'm at in life right now. Everything else, I move from that space with everything else.
I also think that like a lot of guys need to hear that. You know, I think that we're in this new place where we talk and we didn't used to really.
Yeah,
you know?
facts.
And so I think it's important. So I think we're evolving, but I think that like when I think about it, and I'm just like an analyst, right? And I always analyze things, and I watch artists, and when I look at you and I go, okay, you're young enough to do whatever you want, but you're old enough to know who you are.
Yeah.
And how many other guys are there like you? There just aren't. When you think about the class of artists you're in, there's just not a lot. So there's only so it's unique, right? It's a unique place to be in where you have this experience. You were so young when you started.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we get started young, and I was young, but not as young as you. I was a few years older than you. When I got on for real in a way where the world knew who I was, I was probably 22. Mm-hmm. You were a teenager. Yeah. So think about that.
I do.
You survived that. Most people don't. A lot of people don't. We don't even remember the people who don't, right? And then we had to watch some of them painfully not. And then we've seen people overcome and survive. But there's only a few guys that can stand where you're standing and give the advice to the younger artists, impress the older artists, and get the respect that you have. And then the next 10 years, I look at it and I go, oh, he's going to do his greatest work.
It's true.
And
I feel that.
And then wear it the way you'd hope someone would wear it, right? And be that inspiration. But like that to me is like it's such a cool story, and I'm excited to see like the next 10 years unfold.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about the next 5.
Yeah,
3, you know. But right now, I think there's other things that I'm doing outside of music that make me happy. You know, creating and being a visionary and like just using my relationships, and like that's the beautiful part about being an artist, right? And being in this, unique clique of like urban music and like the times and my peers and all this. But like outside of that, just being a person who likes to think outside of the box and do cool things.
Yep.
Giving more reverence to that part of myself and using those relationships and making it a full circle moment. That's the exciting thing about it. It's like we live in a world now where it's like it's cool to involve your other creative sides and your art, and it's like it gives more depth to who you are as a person. And that's what I think I'm most excited about, people experiencing it and seeing. But I'm one of those people who don't like to talk about it until it's like actualizing.
Yeah, I get it. I'm the same.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I was planning on doing this show for 2 years, and then I finally did it. And it's nice to be doing it. But I was dreaming of doing it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So
I think the world needs inspiration again, and I think that's what we're here to do. You know what I'm saying? If you are a person and there's something that's chasing you, there's a vision that's chasing you, right now is the time to like really act on it. I know the world is in a crazy place, but like, you got to continue to evolve and try things and just do it. You know what I'm saying? Wake up and move towards it in whatever capacity you can with where you are right now. There's always a step you can take. I think that sometimes we think like, oh, until this is done, I can't make this step. Like, no, there's always preparation before the reward. So,
and there's no time like the present.
No time like it, bro. No time like it. But yeah.
Thanks for coming.
No problem, bro. Thanks for having me.
Mario. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Artist Friendly. If you really liked it, you can follow, like, subscribe to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.
Bad times,